Many people watch poker on TV and dream of becoming a huge star like their favorite players. The allure of making millions from a few lucky hands of cards is an incredible one, though the sad reality is that it's not likely to happen. Like any other sport, the true money-making superstars are few and far between, and the mega millionaires are even rarer than that. But that doesn't mean we can't dream about and admire those elite few who have made the kind of living that would set the next 20 generations of their family up for life. We're taking a look at the 12 most successful poker players in history in terms of how much money they've earned in live games over their careers. Not a single person on this list has pulled in under $20 million, and if that's not motivation to dust off your deck of cards and at least try to beat the insurmountable odds against joining them, I don't know what is. Since 2005, Justin Bonomo has made a name for himself as one of the most successful poker players ever, and now he's the most successful. With 161 cashes in his career, 6 of them being for $1 million or more, Justin makes the top spot on this list thanks to an incredible 2018. He earned over $25 million in that year alone, including almost $5 million at a Hong Kong tournament in March, another $5 million at the High Roller Bowl in May, and the $10 million cash prize for winning the big one for one drop in July. It's all but a given Bonomo won't ever replicate his amazing 2018 run. But even if he only makes a couple million every year going forward, he's forever going to be considered one of the best. Besides, a couple million a year isn't so bad. I'd be happy with just that. Daniel Negreanu's nickname Kid Poker isn't quite apropos anymore, since the man's in his mid-40s. His status as one of the best players ever, on the other hand, is as secure as ever. Over a 20-plus year career, Negreanu has earned close to $40 million. He's done so on the basis of super consistent play, so much so that in 2014 he was named Global Player of the Decade. And really, 294 cashes since 1997? I can see why. Of those cashes, 7 have been for $1 million or more. His record cash by far is the $8.28 million he earned by winning 2014's big one for one drop at that year's World Series of Poker. Speaking of the World Series, Daniel hasn't only won multiple bracelets. He's the only player to do so in Europe, Vegas, and Australia. Good job, kid. Seidel has been around just shy of forever. He's been cashing since 1988, with his first cash finish being perhaps his most famous. He placed second in that year's World Series of Poker main event, and his showdown with winner Johnny Cham was featured 10 years later in the hit movie Rounders. Outside of movie fame, Seidel has won over $34 million in his career, along with 8 World Series bracelets and a 2010 induction into the Poker Hall of Fame. He's only had 4 cashes exceed $1 million, and none have broken $2.5 million. But somehow I don't think he's complaining. Slow and steady wins the race, and makes for a filthy rich tortoise to boot. David Peters hasn't been playing live poker as long as some others, but he's more than made up for lost time. Since 2006, he's cashed 248 times for over $32 million. This includes an incredible 10 cashes exceeding $1 million, and an amazing 56 cashes for over $100,000. In short, when Peters wins, he wins big. This extends past the live table too. Peters is active in the online poker world, and has earned an additional $6 million from behind his computer. Between that and a 2019 where he's already won over $1 million twice, don't be surprised if Peters becomes the new #1 moneymaker before long. German superstar Fedor Holz has only been in the game since 2012, but already he's got over $32 million to his name. Like Peters, this is a poker player who in due time will likely top the money-making list for at least a short while. He has $7 million plus cashes to his name, 4 of which exceeded $3 million. His top prize, $6 million for placing second in 2018's big one for one drop, is enough to place him among the upper echelon by itself. All in all, he's only cashed 82 times thus far, and yet he's made all this money. Clearly, he's not even close to being done. Since 2007, Bryn Kenny has established himself as one of the top poker players in history. He has over $30 million in earnings to his name, much of it coming from 2016 onward. His later career winnings were so strong, in fact, that he made more money in 2017 than any other poker player that year. He may not be the top dog now, but 6th place isn't anything to complain about either. With $5 million plus cashes to his name, plus several more just under that milestone amount, it's clear that Kenny knows how to win, and how to win big. And what's amazing is after all these years, he might finally be hitting his prime. In March of 2019, he recorded the absolute biggest win of his career, placing second in the Triton Super High Roller Series main event, and pocketing over $3 million for his efforts. He's not going anywhere for a while. Daniel Coleman makes this list for one reason only. In 2014, he won over $15 million by placing first in that year's big one-for-one drop event, beating out all-time money man Daniel Negreanu in the final round. It costs $1 million just to enter that event, but if you win, you're made for life. Even without that monstrous victory, Coleman would be doing just fine for himself, having pocketed almost $29 million since 2008. Almost $23 million of that came in 2014 alone, more than enough to make him the top money earner that year. He's obviously never won anything close to $15 million, but he's had 4 other cashes for over $1 million. His light bill is being paid just fine, no worries. Who knows what the future holds for Coleman? He hasn't cashed since 2017, and he hasn't won more than a few million since 2014. His main thing is playing online, so he's likely focusing more on that as of late. Whatever happens, he'll always have 2014. An online-heavy player who's nevertheless crushed it on the live stage, Jason Koon has earned almost $28 million since launching his live poker career in 2008. Of his 128 cashes, 7 were for $1 million or more, an impressive ratio to say the least. Koon's another player who, while he's been around a while, truly came into his own recently. He won almost $12.5 million in 2018 alone, and he's on pace to do the same in 2019, thanks to a great showing at this year's Triton High Roller event in Jeju. Who knows how successful he'll wind up when it's all said and done. No matter what happens, however, Jason Koon holds the top spot in a category no one else is likely to touch. He is the undisputed top moneymaker among any other poker player ever from West Virginia. Apparently, when country roads are supposed to take him home, they instead take him straight to a casino. Like Daniel Coleman, former magician Antonio Esfandiari is a player who made pretty good money on his own, but was catapulted into the financial stratosphere thanks to one win. In 2012, he won the big one-for-one drop, pocketing a jaw-dropping $18.3 million for doing so. It was the single biggest prize in poker history, and immediately made Esfandiari a household name. That year in 2011, he ranked 688th among moneymakers. In 2012, he was number 1. Esfandiari's resume isn't eye-widening by any stretch. It's good. Outside of that monster win, he's made over $9 million in 117 cashes and won over $1 million twice. But his story is proof that one game, one hand, and one card can literally change one's entire world. Otherwise, he'd be mostly known as the magic poker player who entertains the crowd with cool, cheap tricks. Esfandiari's barely won $3 million since 2012, but it almost doesn't matter. Thanks to that one night in 2012, his legacy is set in stone, and his wallet is set forever. Dan Smith has been around since 2008, and since then he's made an absolute fortune in poker. After nearly $28 million in winnings, it's safe to say he's more than made his mark. 8 out of his 115 cashes have been for over $1 million, and that includes a $2 million prize, a $3 million one, and a $4 million one. He only won the last one last year, so it's possible he's prepping for a $5 million pot sometime this year. After all, when it comes to money, what better way to go than up? That all said, Dan Smith isn't exactly the best role model for potential poker players. He was a college kid around the time televised poker blew up in the mid-2000s, and he promptly dropped out to become a full-time poker player. It's obviously worked out for him, but for the most part, if you're in school, stay there. The cards aren't likely to be in your favor. Steve ODwyer is proof you don't need gargantuan winnings to make gargantuan money. If you're good enough at poker to grind away for years, chances are you'll eventually make the big bucks. And so it is that ODwyer, who's never won a World Series bracelet and never won more than $1.8 million at a time, is one of the most successful poker players in history. It took a while for ODwyer to become a true success, however. He started cashing in 2007, but didn't make much at all for the first few years. By 2011, he was reduced to sleeping on a fellow poker player's floor and borrowing money for food, due to losing what little money he had on Black Friday, or the day when all the major online poker rooms got raided and shut down by the FBI. Later that year, however, he began to hit his poker stride and has been more than able to afford his own food ever since. Many successful poker players are fairly anonymous, and you wouldn't likely notice them if they walked past you. Phil Ivey is not one of those people. With 10 World Series bracelets, a 2017 Poker Hall of Fame induction, and a worldwide reputation as one of the greatest players ever, the Tiger Woods of poker is as much a face of the game as anyone can hope to be. Since 1998, Ivey has cashed 157 times for over $26 million in earnings. That amount is all the more amazing when you realize he's never had a monster year, that his biggest single cash was a mere $3.5 million, and that he didn't earn it all in 2011 or 2017. He's simply that good, and that consistent of a player, that he can just win and win and win until all of a sudden he's worth over $20 million and has enough bracelets for a family of 5. Let's wrap this up with what can only be called an honorable mention. Phil Hellmuth is easily one of the best poker players ever. With 341 cashes since 1988, nearly $23 million in earnings, an unbelievable 15 World Series bracelets, and a 2007 Poker Hall of Fame induction, the Poker Brat is as good as he loudly and often says he is. However, he's only the 18th most successful poker player of all time, which doesn't qualify him for this list. So why are we including him? Well, because otherwise he might yell at us. A lot. Phil Hellmuth isn't known for being a very gracious sport, and his verbal berating of fellow poker players is the stuff of awkward legend. We don't want to risk an epic and likely profane tongue lashing from the Poker Brat, so we'll be nice and put him on this list. There, now everyone's happy.